It's time for another edition of the Improbability Engine's After Show, and today we're talking about chick flicks. I'm Will Aubrey, and joining me is Joe Darnell. And Joe, these are movies that guys are often embarrassed to say that they love, but I actually like a lot of them.
Absolutely, and let's start with an idea that we have to explain kind of what we're defining a chick flick as. Now, this is a movie that, quite frankly, would be something that, as a guy, you'd be embarrassed to tell your guy friends that you like. Let's just use that as a generalized part of that. What's funny about that is some of these movies are just really fantastic movies. You know, we call them chick flicks to get away from, the idea that we as guys could like that. So we're going to throw convention in our face. We're going to turn that machoism on its ear, and we're going to talk about it today. And I want to start off with my absolute favorite chick flick, Sleepless in Seattle.
It's a great movie.
What a it's beautifully acted, perfectly written. It's funny. It's poignant. It's powerful, and it's great. And it started, quite frankly, the Tom Hanks Meg Ryan thing, which worked its way through other vehicles and other movies and was copied and emulated as much as possible in the rom-com era, and quite frankly culminated in another one of mine, but I'll talk about it later. I think Sleepless in Seattle is a classic. It absolutely captures its time and place as much as any of the old Cary Grant movies. And frankly, when it's on, I got to kind of watch it. I just watch it. It's fun.
I'm going to start, oddly enough, with a chick flick that I hate. I walked out of this movie. I just despised this movie, and it won Best Picture.
Okay.
Annie Hall.
Annie Hall. So, are you not a Woody Allen fan, or?
I actually like Woody Allen.
That's why you went to watch the movie.
Yes, that's why I went to watch the movie. But both he and Diane Keaton were just incredibly annoying in this movie.
Oh, see, that's...
As was the script.
That to me, I can understand why you would feel that way. It is...
I'll say a chick flick thing.
Okay.
Thank you for validating my opinion.
I think your feelings are valid, and I understand. So, like all Woody Allen movies, it's wrapped in humor, or it tries to be. The best part about Annie Hall is how he makes fun of the movie industry. To me, that's a big deal. You find that this is a guy who, quite frankly, has not been immune to scandal, but has been kind of loved throughout his career by the Hollywood establishment. He didn't get the scorn that he probably should have for some of the things that he's done, but I can understand where you're coming from. So you don't like Annie Hall at all?
Correct. Now I'll give you a couple that I do like.
Okay.
Working Girl.
That's pretty good.
And what I like best about that is that my favorite patriotic song is in that movie.
Your favorite patriotic song in Working Girl. Okay,
yes.
Now you're stretching my thought process.
Let the River Run.
That's kind of odd, but okay. All right, I'll let you have that.
And Beaches.
Beaches. Okay. Now, Beaches to me is one of those movies that is good by itself, but is inseparable from its soundtrack.
I agree.
Bette Midler is my spirit animal. Okay? Bette Midler she is a throwback to old Hollywood. She can sing. She's funny. She acts well. There's something about Bette Midler that quite frankly, you just kind of have to tip your hat and say, you know what, you got it, go for it. if I could be more like a famous person, I would try to be more like Bette Midler. And I think that is, if there's not something there that's wonderful, that needs to go on. That's good stuff. I think that's a great. Okay, so my next.
Now, the great song "Wind Beneath My Wings."
Absolutely, everybody knows it. The fact, just by saying the word, there are people who are listening to this who are humming it under their breath right now. You know who you are. Don't try to hide. Just comment and let us know. That's
and be thankful that I'm not singing it.
Oh, there are so many blessings in that. I'm so happy to hear that. Do not let Will have Bette Midler as his spirit animal. That's a very important thing. All right, so the next one that I've got is another chick flick, another romantic comedy. This one starring Hugh Grant, Notting Hill. Notting Hill is the story of a workaday guy who's been divorced and is trying to find love, and one day in his little bookshop over in the Notting Hill neighborhood of London walks a movie star. She walks in and he's immediately just overcome, and a romance ensues, and there's trouble, and it is sappy and good, and quite frankly, it's just you gotta watch it. I mean, it's one of those movies you gotta watch. Notting Hill's a really, really good one. I don't know if you've seen Notting Hill. I would recommend it. I really would. It's really funny. It's really a funny movie.
Okay, The Notebook. This might be my all-time favorite.
That is the saddest movie I've ever watched, and not only that.
How is it the saddest
horribly
movie you ever
sad.
watched?
I'm not going to give away the ending on this movie. It is horribly sad. If you're not a puddle of mush at the end of this movie, you have no pulse.
All right.
Go watch some Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
There's a scene in this movie.
What do you want? What do you want? It's not that easy. What do you want? That is the epitome of every relationship in this world.
There's a scene in this movie that's awesome where the two lovers go and lay in the road, okay? And
seems dangerous.
After Marilyn and I went to see this movie, it's like midnight, we went and laid in the road on Chestnut Street there at Chestnut and 12th. It was awesome.
That is extremely dangerous, Will. You could have picked someplace else. You could have picked like Pine Street or something that doesn't see a lot of car traffic. But no. Chestnut Street's a busy road, Will. You got to be careful with that kind of stuff. It's all fun and games until somebody gets hurt, okay? That's just how this stuff works. If romantic comedies have taught me nothing, it's all fun and games until somebody gets hurt.
Okay. But it's my favorite.
Well, that's a pretty good one. Let me think of the best one that I got left. You know, there are so many really good, a lot of mine are romantic comedies because that's just how that works. How about this one? This is actually my favorite Christmas movie. Well, my second favorite Christmas movie. My favorite modern Christmas movie.
Okay.
Love Actually.
Okay.
Now, Love Actually is an ensemble movie that ties the stories of, 40 characters together and kind of weaves a thread through the whole thing. It is poignant and at times sad. It's very funny. It's well acted. Again, Hugh Grant's involved, so you know it's going to be good. But it's one of those movies that, when you get done with it, you just feel better and you're ready to watch it again. It's a very unique way of telling the story. They go through. They don't focus on one thing. It bounces around, and so you have to kind of figure out that what's going on here. And then all of a sudden, at the end, it all kind of ties together and shows everybody connected. And a very fantastic movie, a lot of fun to watch, and one that I would recommend.
There are a couple that I think have to be mentioned, and I love them both. When Harry Met Sally.
Yes.
And Titanic. But we'll start with When Harry Met Sally.
When Harry Met Sally.
And they start out as friends.
Absolutely. And honestly, it has the best scene in a movie from the 1980s. And there's a lot of good movies. But when she fakes the orgasm in the diner and the lady calls the waitress over and says, "I'll have what she's having," greatest scene in the movie in the 1980s. It is iconic. It's hilarious. It's one that's still being used today because people will say that, I'll have what she's having. Just nonstop. It's constant.
Right.
It's so
Now, it does bring up an interesting philosophical question.
Yeah.
Can people who start out as friends
Uh-huh.
become romantically involved? Does that work?
Well, I don't know if that's a loaded question or if you're coming on to me, so I'm going to deflect. You know what? The answer, I think, is yes. I mean, my wife and I were friends before we ever got romantic. Yeah, and it's. I don't think it's common, but I've come to the conclusion that how you fall in love, where you meet, and how that all works, it's not the same for everybody.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen people who. There are stories of people who were mail order spouses or arranged marriage spouses who fall in love and they're magically happy together. There are people who meet online. There are people who meet in bars. You know, they're cliches. And then there are people who meet in ways that you're like, oh, well, that's great, and they're not happy together. So I don't think that's the way that works. I think that it's there's a little more kismet involved. You know, a little bit more of the fates that come into play and being lucky. How did you and your wife meet?
Well, we were playing cards. Actually, to start at the beginning, I was in my friend Russ Walker's dorm room. We were going to play cards, and so Marilyn arrives downstairs at Hart Hall, and she calls. And so
she
called
1963, right?
1976. So she calls Russ's dorm room, and I answer the phone, and I make some sort of smart alecky comment, and she replied in kind, and we were off and running. And so we went down and played cards, and I took her to the palace after we played cards. And when I went back to my dorm room that night, I asked God to let me marry her. And
you know what?
And He did.
If that's not an example of kismet, I don't know what it is. I mean, that's how that works. It just kind of happens sometimes. And how you get to point A to point B is a lot less important than what happens post point B.
Now, let's talk about Titanic. There are people, and I can tell you're one of them, who do not like this movie, but it is actually a magnificent film. The grandeur of the cinematography, which nobody ever talks about, is just awesome. And I also think that the acting is, it's better than people give it credit for.
Right. Well, I will say this. As a teenager, I watched 2 movies in the theater multiple times.
Okay.
Only 2. One was Independence Day, because frankly, that movie begs to be shown in a theater. You need surround sound. You need the big screen.
You do.
Watching it on television, it's flat. It's not even that great of a movie. There's some funny lines. There's some good poignant stuff, but basically you're missing out on all the special effects. And for its time, it was a special effects movie. The other was Titanic. I actually took my brother to see Titanic twice.
We saw it 6 times in the movie theater.
It doesn't surprise
me. We went there, and it was like after it had been in the theater for 5 months. And we went, and it was in one of the smaller theaters at the Cherie, but it was packed. Every seat was full. And we were like, why? And somebody told us it's the anniversary of the sinking.
Oh, wow, what a great time to go. So a little background on me, I am a history buff. So automatically, the movie had me. I mean, love story aside, a story about the Titanic, okay, I'm willing to, my brother was actually, he was born April 15th, which is known for 2 things, the sinking of the Titanic and the death of Abraham Lincoln. So those are 2 things that he always would talk about. Yeah, my birthday was when, Lincoln died, or the Titanic stuff. So taking him to go the first time, we went and watched, and you're right, cinematography, it is a beautifully set movie. It is wonderful. I mean, you watch it, and it's just gigantic. The way that they do it is powerful, and it's very well done. The story is unique and good, and it is a romantic, movie, but it's one that you just kind of have to watch. And to think, it all started because James Cameron wanted someone to give him money to go and dive the Titanic. That's what he wanted to do. His big hobby is to take, unmanned submersible vehicles and find shipwrecks, and he found the Titanic. So a very good outcome on something like that. Again, a movie that is known for its soundtrack, is known for a few lines, and quite frankly, I think a lot more people like that movie than what they would admit, because the very question of whether Jack could have gotten on the floating piece of debris as well instead of dying has taken on a life of its own. I think all of those people who argue that are people who love the movie, and that's the part where they get angry.
I do want to mention Kate Winslet in that movie.
Absolutely.
She does a great job. It is not her best movie.
It is not.
If you're a fan of movies, you're a fan of the acting craft, see The Reader. She is incredible in that movie.
Fantastic in The Reader. Okay, so the next movie, I kind of teased it earlier, talking about Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks. You've Got Mail. Now, You've Got Mail is a unique movie. It comes out right as email is becoming a thing, where instant messaging is a thing. Prior to this,
where everybody was using America Online.
America Online, the phrase, "You've got mail." Oh, what a great concept. It tells me I've got mail. This is fantastic. This movie the premise is forever dated. It is a time capsule to a very specific point in time. Even the storyline where the big box bookstore puts the little bookstore out of business, which is hilarious now because the big box bookstores are being put out of business by Amazon.
Right.
So it's one of those where in its own time it is a time capsule. But a movie that is funny, the premise is unique, it's well written. Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, America's sweethearts, they can do no wrong. You can watch them act. They're funny, they're personable, they're approachable in the way they act. They're, as they play characters, they play them in such a way that you're like, oh, I know, I could hang out with that person, and that makes it more real. So a fantastic movie. You've Got Mail. Never has ghosting somebody been so much fun. All right, what do you got, Will?
Well, I'm trying to think of a title. I can think of the movie, but for some reason, now I've got the title. It hit me. I hate getting old. This movie, I think, is actually the most overrated chick flick.
Oh, no.
An Affair to Remember.
Okay. So An Affair to Remember is referenced in Sleepless in Seattle. It's the movie where, we're going to go meet at the Empire State Building on Valentine's Day. I've watched it once. It was fine. But that's it. It was fine. It's fine.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's it.
It has the least passion of any love story you have ever seen.
I know.
It's just incredible how little passion this movie has.
Well, and you get to the point in this movie that even for the 1950s, it's dry. You know what I mean? It's tough to explain. It's one of those movies that you watch it and you just kind of go, yeah, that's a cute movie. But if you're looking for a movie from the 50s that's a romantic comedy that I think is infinitely better, it's The Quiet Man. The Quiet Man. John Wayne, Maureen O'Hara.
I've never seen that. I've always just had a sense of revulsion toward that movie. Right now I'm giving Will a look of incredulity. I don't understand what he's saying here. Why would you have? Well, that's
question?
Kind of like the other day when my wife said, "You did laundry?"
Right, exactly. Well, in her defense, she didn't know that you had only done your laundry. She thought you had done other laundry. So I can understand why she was incredulous. That makes a lot of sense. No, The Quiet Man's a great movie from the 1950s that a boxer leaves America, a very famous world heavyweight boxer leaves America because he's killed a man in the ring and he can't fight anymore. And so he goes back to his father's hometown in Ireland. And he goes there and he's trying to get involved in this small little Irish town. And he meets Maureen O'Hara's character. And
yeah, but tell him who the actor is.
It's John Wayne.
Right.
It's John Wayne. Okay, this is John Wayne's best romantic lead movie. Now, that's not saying a whole lot. John Wayne is not known as the romantic lead in a lot of movies. I'll grant you that. That's not a problem. But if Clint Eastwood can be the romantic lead in Bridges of Madison County, John Wayne can be the romantic lead in The Quiet Man. And so there's all the stuff that takes. He's trying to get integrated. They fall in love, and there's a dowry involved, and her brother doesn't want to pay him a dowry, and there's struggle between him and the brother, and it ends in a fight scene that is oddly reminiscent of the one in McClintock. You've seen McClintock, right?
Yes.
Okay. There's a fight scene there with John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara. There's a fight scene that it's just. It's boisterously funny because it's just ridiculous. In The Quiet Man, same concept. Marcus of Queensberry rules. They get into a fist fight. It ends up going all through the town. Everybody gets involved. Everybody's gambling. The Protestant preacher, the parson, is gambling. The priest from the Catholic Church is gambling. Everybody's gambling, and they've all got money on it. Fantastic movie. I'd say if you're looking for a romantic comedy that you want to watch, it's the non-chick flick version of An Affair to Remember, The Quiet Man. Do that one instead. All right, so
among classic chick flicks,
yes,
Casablanca.
Oh,
and we've talked about this movie in other podcasts because it's such a great movie.
And I cannot tell you how important it is to watch this movie in a dark room on a giant screen. I actually, the Cherie Theater here in Murray did some classic movies for a while, and one of the movies they did was Casablanca. I took my wife, and we watched it in the old theater, the old original Cherie Theater. And we sat there and we watched it on the silver screen, and it was amazing. It was just amazing. And one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's a fantastic movie. It's highly quotable. It's one that you've got to go watch. If you haven't watched it, do it now. Take somebody, go find a place that's showing it, or rent it, get it on a projector, put it on a big screen television in a dark room. You eat some popcorn and watch it. It's a fantastic movie. All right, so I've got two that are great romantic comedies, and they're movies that I like watching if they're on. The first one is Pretty Woman. The premise is a prostitute falls in love with a billionaire. That's pretty racy until you watch the movie, and it kind of makes it not racy. So I would recommend watching Pretty Woman. It's one of the movies from the 80s that you've got to watch. It's funny. It's well acted. Richard Gere's in it. It's a really, really great movie. It's one that you got to watch. The other is a newer movie called Silver Linings Playbook.
I love that movie.
It is a great movie. It's a great movie. The story's good. The acting's good. You know, the premise is powerful, and it's amazing. It's really a great movie to watch. It's just one that I recommend. Both of those movies are good. Both of them are really great.
Well, Silver Linings Playbook is a movie about a guy who's mentally ill who falls in love with a woman who's mentally ill. And at one point when they're having a disagreement, one of them says to the other, you think I'm crazier than you are. It's a hilarious movie.
But it's poignant as well.
There's a part of it where the guy and his dad and I think maybe his brother, they're watching sports on TV, and they're arguing over where the remote should sit because that affects the outcome of the game.
Right, and the funny thing is you've got this crazy family that is punctuated by this guy who's frankly got mental issues, and the only person who could step in and have it make sense is this girl who walks in, and all of a sudden it all makes sense. Everything starts clicking. Things start working. It's funny how it doesn't make, you look at it and go, that shouldn't work, but it totally does. It's a fantastic movie. It's a lot of fun. It's one that I'd recommend watching.
I've got two more.
Go for it.
One that's relatively recent.
Okay.
I love this movie, Hope Springs.
Hope Springs. Tell me about Hope Springs.
Meryl Streep is in it.
Okay.
I really cannot. Let's see if I can describe the best scene without. I really can't describe the best scene because some people are going to think it's offensive. But there's a scene where it's about an older couple, okay? And there's a scene where they're in the movie theater together, and she's trying to do something amorous, and she's really bad at it. And so that's that. But the movie is hilarious, and I just, and then the other one, and this is out of nowhere, and some might not say it's a chick flick, but they would be wrong. The Thin Man.
Okay.
With Myrna Loy and William Powell.
Tell me about The Thin Man.
All right. Well, The Thin Man, it's the story of Nick and Nora Charles, and Nick is a detective, and Nora is his wife.
Okay.
The interplay between the two is what makes the movie. They constantly tease each other, and the way that they do it is so subtle that it's just awesome. And I love the movie. And you could probably not get away with it today, but one of his jabs toward her is that he calls her old thing.
Oh, that's not good. Yeah, that would be bad.
But she jabs back.
As she should. You look at those movies, and quite frankly, the characters make it as it comes to these chick flick movies. Is how they come about and how they work together. And the last one on my list is one that, quite frankly, I never wanted to watch it. We'd watch it in school if we were good. And I would go, oh, we're going to watch that movie again, and then I'd watch the whole movie. And that movie is The Princess Bride. The Princess Bride is hilarious. It is truly funny.
I have an aversion to that movie, too.
Well, Will, there's no accounting for taste. The Princess Bride is one of those movies that, quite frankly, you can make a quote from that movie fit just about any situation.
I will say this, one of my favorite actors, I believe, is in that movie.
Okay, who's that?
Mandy Patinkin.
Mandy Patinkin is in that movie. I thought you were going to say Andre the Giant, who is also in that movie. Carrie Ells in the movie. Really just a lot of fun, a lot of character actors. Billy Crystal makes a cameo appearance, and he's hilarious. It's really just a great fantasy movie that you can watch. That Fred Savage is in it. It's really fun. It's a good movie. I'm
going to close out my portion by mentioning a TV show because it's my favorite TV show of all time. It's a chick flick of a TV show, and I loved it. Ally McBeal. Ally McBeal. After every single show, there was something to talk about. Philosophical problems, all kinds of interesting things. The music was awesome, and yes, the love story aspect of it was terrific as well.
Right. Yeah, I think Ally McBeal's lasting contribution is that it has disillusioned a generation of women against the office, against being in an office like that. You know, everybody. One of the things that one of my favorite comedy shows, the IT Crowd, riffs on Ally McBeal, and they walk in and she goes, "Oh my God, you've got unisex bathrooms like an Ally McBeal." And she opens the door, and there are two beautiful people making out. She goes, "Oh, my God, it's just like Ally McBeal." And then she goes to her office, and it's absolutely nothing like Ally McBeal. That's the big thing you got going for you there.
Speaking of an office, I have to throw this out, and this is actually, in a way, it will be a straight line for you. On my Facebook memories today, popped up a card that I received from my clerical staff back when I used to work in an office in New Orleans. And it said, "To the most handsome man in the office, happy birthday."
You know, and that's a courageous thing to send to a married man, or you know, in any situation where lying might be bad. Any situation where somebody writes something like that down, you almost have to assume that it's tongue-in-cheek, although I don't think you did.
No, of course not.
Well, here's to hoping that they're correct, although that's an indictment of the
other guys in the office.
Of course, we have to jest because we're two guys sitting alone in the room talking about chick flicks. So we have to do that. We have to rib each other a little bit. It's in the guy code.
Absolutely. Are we done?
I think we're done. Great show. I hope everybody leaves their comments. If there's any that we missed, let us know. We're guaranteed to miss some. I'm almost infallible, but really Will drop the ball like 5 or 6 times during one of these shows. So tell him all about it. Let him know where he's messed up, and I'll pile on.
That brings to a close this edition of the Improbability Engine.
Did you get to decide all by yourself?
Don't be rude.
I'm sorry. Just trying to figure out what you do for fun.
What do you mean?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, all those things are things you have to do, right? So what do you do because you want to?
I just told you.
I don't know. It surprises me.
What?
I just always figured you were kind of...
Kind of what?
just... free.
What?
Free.
I am free.
You don't seem like it.
Well, I am.
Come here, I want to show you something.
Well, what are you doing?
Just come on.
You're gonna get run over.
Buy all the cars?
My dad and I used to come out here and lay down, watch the lights change. Watch them go from green to red to yellow.
You could try it if you wanted to.
No.
Why not?
Because, I don't know, we just get up.
That's your problem. You know that? You don't do what you want.
Okay. And what happens if a car comes?
You die.
What?
Just relax. Just trust. You need to learn how to trust.